Sit you down, loyal comrades, sit you down for a while, till I spend my last hours in Heron's green isle. So fill up your glasses and we'll drink hand in hand, for tomorrow I'll be leaving the shores of Maxwell.
It was the greatest single disaster to occur in any part of the New World at the time. It affected the lives of millions. They died at work in the fields. They were found dead by the roadside with blades of grass in their mouths, and they died in their sleep. Entire villages died virtually overnight. They were buried in mass graves at Drumshanbo, Mullingar and Annandale. In proportional terms, the Great Hunger of Ireland was the most ravaging national disaster ever recorded. Just prior to the start of the famine, the population of Ireland was 8.5 million people. At the turn of the new century, 50 years later, the population of Ireland was 3 million. In 1841, the population of Leitrim was 155,297, and by 1951 it had dropped to 41,209. In these times, so many of Leitrim's young men and women headed off for a strange land, an emigration induced by poverty and starvation, with many, many more following in their tracks over the following 100 years. It was the tradition that on the night before they left, they would have a right send-off, which early on earned the title of the American Wake, since for so many it was to be the death of their life in Leitrim. In the famine years, the American Wake was a very sombre affair, since there was nothing to survive on, let alone to host a party with. But as things began to improve in the country, so too did the American Wake.
Sons and fair daughters of Erin's green isle, I pray stand attention and listen a while. Our sons and fair daughters, they are all going In thousands they're leaving for America. Their friends all do gather and the neighbours also. Their trunks are all packed up, just ready to go. And the tears from their eyes, they fall down like the rain, as the horses are leaving, going off for the train.
A thought came to my mind today, I have to ask you, dear, if you will join me for a walk to a spot not far from here, to a place where you and I first met and all our dreams came true, under Fionnuala and shades of green, I gave my heart to you. Will you walk with me once more to a place we've been before? While strolling down together, we can pick the rolling heather, and while walking hand in hand, we recall it was so grand. Looking out over Loughallen on that lovely Leitrim shore.
Whilst Drumshanbo town seemed to be thriving in terms of business and industry from the early 1900s, even having up to 16 public houses at one stage, the grey soil of Leitrim was still causing hardship for those trying to make a living from the land, although conditions had improved marginally since the 1800s.
In a house among the little hills of Leitrim. 'Tis many's a weary year since last I saw my country's skies and heard across the waste of
This particular thrashing machine came into Ireland in 1892. My cousins bought it in 1917. They're from County Offaly. It was made in Granton in England. My aunt's husband, Josie, used to follow the thrashing machine when he was young. The main man using this particular thrasher at the time was called Big John Dunn. When Big John Dunn retired, Josie took over the thrashing duties. Josie was born in 1922. It's interesting to note that during the Second World War, the government made it compulsory to grow tillage, mostly wheat in this particular area, for feeding the population. Westmeath area would have been traditionally a grassland area, therefore there weren't too many thrashing machines in the county, so Josie did a lot of his thrashing in County Westmeath. He had lots of stories about drinking single porter and sleeping in sheds after the thrashing. Josie's policy when starting the thrashing in a townland was to start at the top and work his way down, taking every farm either side of the road as he went. He found it was the fairest policy. He often told stories of lads having a quiet word with him and asking him to skip a neighbour they may not like. But Josie stuck to his guns and did them in the same order every year. The thrasher was last used in 1950. One of Josie's sons has a slight memory of it. Pádraig thinks that it may have been used to thrash a little bit of oats for thatching a cottage, because these thrashers were more gentle on the straw than your typical combine, your modern combine machine. It was stored in a shed since 1952. There was no concrete floor in the shed and the wheels had sunk a little into the clay. However, when it was moved 3 years ago, to the amazement of Pádraig and his family, it rolled out of the shed without any trouble and the wheels were perfect, just proving the quality of the craftsmanship at the time. Pádraig and his family decided to donate it to the Irish Agricultural Museum in Wexford. It's now fully restored and will soon be on display to the public. Another interesting feature of this particular machine is the shadow box, which Pádraig thinks was put on it when it was manufactured because it looked so original. It has a little religious picture in it, similar to the Sacred Heart. Thrashers were a very dangerous machine, and many's a leg was lost in these machines over the years.
My attic room is cold and grey above the narrow street, and up the winding stairs.
But even though the work became less labour intensive and life improved, it wasn't enough to support families and give them the opportunities that they could have elsewhere. In percentage terms, the population of Leitrim suffered more than any other county between 1841 and 2002, with figures reaching an all-time low of 25,799. And many left and did very well for themselves. Others didn't fare so well. And so the American wakes continued, with the neighbours gathering, many items being bought on tick to be paid for when the first of the money arrived back from America. And our young men and women were sent off with their sea provisions of oaten bread and bannocks, and the memories, music and songs that would offer them sustenance and support for the journey ahead.
There's my father and mother, you can now hear them cry, with their tears bewailing, 'twould moisten your eye. But I will assist them, please God, if I can, while far away from lovely Erin and the shores of Lochbran.
We'll play a bit later on when we get the tambourine heated. It's below in the kitchen at the moment. Incidentally, we're in our own sitting room upstairs at the moment, and we have here Patsy Doherty, Pat Frank-Mulrain, Oni Mitchell, Sonny Levy, and myself and Oliver, and Patsy. Patsy just gone up to Maggie Mitchell to see if he can get a hold of Oni Mitchell. Incidentally, we're in a hurry to get this thing made tonight because Pat Canning is calling for it about 11 o'clock tonight for Mrs. Murray to take it to his aunt, to take it to New York. She's leaving in the morning. Well, as I said, myself and Patsy Doherty will continue to play a duet for you, accompanied by Sonny Levy again on the tambourine when Patsy has the tambourine heated. But in the meantime, anyway, here is Oni Mitchell of Clune Gap.